everyone. Welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
Hey, my name's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, babe. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Good. You're a good-looking gal. I was noticing the other day that you talk a lot about this facial stuff and your nightly mocktails or whatever, and then you're gonna run that thing over your face that pokes needles into your face.
It's called a micro needling system.
Yeah, all that. You were very excited about that. I'm like, you're really focusing on your face, and then you're like, well, I mean, I am on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube's, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess you are kind of becoming sort of a public figure. A small public figure.
Yeah,
but
I do not consider myself a public figure, but when you have your phone in your face and you're just looking at your face, it can be a little humbling.
Sure.
AKA appalling, shocking.
Yeah, well, especially now that you're aging and older. And,
excuse me, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, a lot of those things. A lot more like crow's feet. Like if I ever think crow's feet, it's like, well, I just look at you and it's like, okay, there they are.
If I ever think I want my fist to go into your face,
then you do that. Just look at me.
Yeah, so I'm just going to shoot daggers at you.
Yeah. For instance, we just had kind of a tiff. I don't know if it was a tiff in the kitchen. We came in and I got some bread. We got some bread from the market, the local Saturday morning market, and I was just putting it away or trying to get a piece out. Now, Allison was going in the fridge where we keep all of our fruit.
You were mindlessly rummaging, looking down at the bakery goods on our kitchen island.
Yeah. Like I said. And then Allison was going into the fridge, and then I was like, hon, do we have any fruit? And you're like,
no, you did not say fruit. You said, do we have any fruits?
Okay.
As you're rummaging through a bag.
I was way off. I was completely sorry, folks. If you couldn't, thank God you corrected me, because otherwise I don't think they'd know what was going on. No, this is my story. So I say, hon, do we have any fruits?
And also, you did not call me hon.
Okay. I said, do we have any fruits? And you're like, fruits? You look at me and I was like, okay, well, how do I explain fruits to her? I was like, yeah.
He's such an a-hole.
What I'm looking for is things like strawberries, blueberries, bananas, anything.
I will give you a blueberry sprinkled with cyanide is what I will give you.
And you're like, oh, you were looking at the bread. I'm like, yes, you're correct. I was. And I asked, do we have any fruits?
You were actively looking down at our bakery bag, rummaging, going, do we have any fruits? And I'm like, we didn't buy any fruit at the market.
You didn't say that. You said
in
fruits?
In my head. That's what I said. I'm like, jackass, we didn't buy any fruit at the markets.
I don't know if you could hear me inhale. I was like, okay, so how do I explain this
and
to
if
her?
you ever think that Mike is potentially nice based on this podcast, I don't know if you're a new listener or an old listener, but he's not. He is
nice.
A passive-aggressive jerk.
No way. No, I mean, passive-aggressive sometimes, yeah, but because it's fun. But when you have somebody questioning what a fruit is, it's necessary.
And also, we could be talking in depth about a topic, and 5 minutes later, I refer back to said topic, and he's like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm like, I'm not quite sure which planet I'm on, but you're on a different one.
What she's referring to is lots of times Allison thinks that everybody in the world is thinking about the exact same thing she's thinking about. And it wasn't something we talked about 5 minutes ago. It could have been months ago.
Maybe 2 minutes ago.
And she'll be like, do you think red is a good idea? And I'll be like, okay, she could be talking about anything in the whole world. Let's see what she's talking about. And I'll be like, hon, I really don't even know what this is for.
Oh, right. And he does not say it like that. He's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well,
just because it's in your head doesn't mean it's in mine.
I try to talk slowly, like a late night DJ.
Yeah.
That way you're like a little smoothing. Yeah, I don't want you to explode.
You're not going to talk like a late night DJ when I kick you in the groin, because your voice is going to be a little higher.
So if we're hearing things right, we're hearing her threaten me with violence while I'm just the nice guy trying to do my thing, trying to get some fruit in my belly, trying to have a nice productive gut.
And P.S., all I do is wait for Mike. It's usually you'd think that the guy is waiting for the girl because, we have our hair and makeup and things like that. No, it is the opposite. I spend my life waiting for you. When it is time to sit down and do a podcast, I'm just like, it is going to be an amazing feat until his butt is in that seat.
Now, did we talk about that last week, or did you share an Instagram story or something like that? Because somebody mentioned it. And I was like,
shared something with you where a woman is at the door with her purse on, holding her drink, and her husband's just slowly tying his shoes.
Yeah, I like to just kind of go through life and enjoy myself. And,
Oh, should we put the handcuffs on you like we needed to in the other?
If being nice and calm and easygoing is a crime, then put me in handcuffs and put me in prison.
put you in handcuffs, and then I'm going to put you back in the cellar. Oh, wait, we don't have a cellar.
Do you want to threaten me with violence again? Is that what we're doing?
I'm sure I will at some point in time.
She thinks she's so cool because she's like 5'2" and full of spicy vinegar. And it's like,
I'm
no.
5'3". Thank you.
Oh, 5'2.5".
Thank you.
Say. Yeah. Hey, real quick, if you guys love what we do, or even if you just want to hear some more episodes, you don't have to love it. You could like moderately like it. Go ahead and become a subscriber at Patreon or Apple subscriptions or any of that. If you listen on Spotify, Patreon's your best route to go. So I have a lot of people asking me that.
What will they get if they go over to said Patreon and Apple?
That's a good question. It's over 100 bonus episodes.
That's right.
Over 100. So.
Released weekly on Wednesdays, depending on what level of tier you join on Patreon. Apple, you get them all.
And then you could even go ad-free on Patreon.
You could.
Yeah.
And then also, like we always say, if you want to leave us a nice 5-star review, that would be appreciated. Mm-hmm. Mike told me apparently people were talking about my voice being annoying. I mean, it is what it is.
Somebody's like, I got through the first couple episodes of The Voice and like I ended up really liking
voice.
You. Yeah. It's a unique voice. So
just imagine what my family has to deal with. They're stuck with me all day.
That should be one of our things, being like, hey, if you like this little mom and pop podcast and you're like, okay, that voice is kind of annoying, and it is. Like, trust me, I got to live with it every day. But it's like, just get through 3 episodes and I promise you will like her. I promise.
You know, it's kind of like if there's a really bad odor in the air and you just stay in the room, eventually you become immune to it.
Yeah.
It's just like that. If it smells like crap, you'll get used to it. You hear my voice, sounds like crap, you'll get used to it.
Yeah. It's kind of like your voice is like body odor.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like a rotten onion. And speaking of that, I was rewatching season 1 of what the heck show am I watching? Help me, Mike. Help me.
Which one? Severance?
White Lotus.
White Lotus. Okay.
And I was thinking about Jennifer Coolidge's character, and she's like, I just want to get to the core of the onion, because she's talking about dating and how when you're first dating, you're only getting the exterior of the onion. It doesn't yet stink. But over time, you're going to get to that core. She wanted to go straight to the core. So when she was drunk, she's yelling at the guy she basically just started hooking up with on vacation. And she's like, this is the core of the onion.
She's hilarious, man. She's the best.
She told him to take her mother's ashes. She's like, throw them in a garbage. He's like, listen, crazy. Mike, what are you doing?
I'm eating the cookie because we're at our coffee table.
We're at the coffee shop and we have some nice little cookies here.
And it's absolutely disgusting to hear people eating when I'm in your earbuds. I imagine,
it really is.
I'll stop that.
We'll get started soon. I just wanted to do this week's Amazon addiction.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're a new listener, our Amazon addiction, it's nothing that we're sponsored by. It's just products that we use and thus suggest.
We do get paid on it if you buy it through
Yeah, a little bit. So this is my triple sleep magnesium powder that I drink every single night. I mix it into my drink of choice, which you are going to link the recipe for my nighttime drink.
Yeah, I'll do the recipe and all the links.
I'm just not the best sleeper in the world. I'm also not the worst sleeper in the world. It's not like I'm an insomniac, but I do struggle. Sometimes it takes me a while to fall asleep.
Your
Other
brain
times,
goes very quickly. It's like always thinking of something.
Yeah, it really does. And then if I'll wake up at like 3, 4 in the morning and then there's no going back to sleep from there. So like the other day I had 5 hours of sleep. And anyway, so I do whatever I can to maximize my sleep. So what I'm using in this supplement, it's the triple sleep magnesium powder. The brand name is ELMNT. And it seems to work well for me.
And there's a brand I always think about that's LMNT.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of that.
They're just trying to be like them, but I don't know. Have you noticed? So here's the thing. Every time I talk about like supplements, have you noticed a difference taking it?
It's hard to say because there's so many changes in my life. Like sometimes I'm on my phone too long. I know that's the culprit. Like I'm watching White Lotus or Real Housewives, and I'm pushing it too late. That stimulates me. If I cut that off a solid hour before bed and then I go to my Kindle and I read, that is ideal. But sometimes the temptation is just too much.
My problem is that you don't really know what is helping you and what is not, because you're taking, 3 different things in this cocktail, and then you got
many.
5 different pills before bed, and then you'd probably take a few pills in the morning, then you're rolling your face with your needles, and then you're doing all of the other things. So you don't know which one it is.
It's hard to say. You're right, 100%. I have tried to streamline my supplements. I take very little. I take calcium and vitamin D and magnesium. A
lot of people
an allergy pill.
Yeah.
I do take ashwagandha.
Do you? Have
Yeah.
you noticed anything with that?
I think I'm calmer.
Are you?
Yeah, Mike, I'm calm. Okay, I'm calm.
I'm calm.
I'm calm.
I that's one of those. I think you have to like get on and off it. I'm not to be a science episode or whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. So,
Mike, I'm just trying to do the best.
Whatever. If you guys want to check it out, we'll post it in the show notes.
All right. So enough of us and our bickering and going yammering on. So we'll get into this. So this is a listener suggestion from Mary, and this is the death of Dakota James, and we will also be discussing the Smiley Face Killers. So have you ever heard of the Smiley Face Killers?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Recently?
It's been going on for a while. I did not know a whole heck of a lot about it.
Okay.
So today we're stepping back to a cold January night in 2017 when 23-year-old Dakota James vanished. And that night he had been out with friends. He was last seen on surveillance camera walking down an alleyway near the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh. And then sadly, 40 days later, his body surfaced 10 miles downstream, and it was ruled eventually an accidental drowning. So for his parents, this is Pam and Jeff James, though, that explanation, it just never sat right for them. They never believed that it was just as simple as that. So was it a tragic slip into the icy waters, or was it something far, far more darker, such as the Smiley Face Killers? And you might listen to this and say that this is totally absurd that this is even being theorized as a thing, but we will get into that. So this is basically the shadowy theory of organized murder. So today we'll be exploring Dakota's story, which is a young life that was cut far, far too short. A family's fight for the truth, and a question that lingers: accident or great evil that is lurking in the shadows?
Man, the great evil thing is way scarier.
It's
obviously
very scary. And oftentimes, people don't want to admit that maybe there's something more. So at the end of this, you can decide if this is just a crazy theory or if you think that there could be some truth to this, because there are some solid investigators that do believe that this is a thing.
Why don't you comment below if you're listening?
Right. So during Pam James's last conversation with her son, Dakota, she noted that he sounded upbeat. They were basically just discussing the upcoming weekend plans. Dakota was planning on heading over to their vacation home in Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. And they also discussed his new upcoming college classes. He was excited because he had recently gotten a raise at work. He'd gotten a bonus. However, sadly, Dakota never did make it to that weekend. So Dakota James was born on June 21st, 1993 to parents Pam and Jeff James. He did have an older brother. This was Shane. So according to his obituary, after he graduated from Brunswick High School in 2011, he went on to receive a bachelor's degree in economics and logistics. He went to West Virginia University, and that's where he got that degree in 2015. And now moving to where this case was in 2017, he was a graduate student at Duquesne University. This is in Pittsburgh. So on top of carrying a full-time job, this is where he was working towards getting his MBA with the goal of then attending law school after graduation. So Pam described her son as a smart, outgoing, friendly person, someone that had a large circle of close friends. He just drew people to him, just his friendly nature. He had 2 earrings, a Harry Potter tattoo, and a chin-strap beard. And he was known to be an old soul because he was always kind and relatable to older generations. I always feel like that was me. When I was younger, I worked at a retirement community. I work in a hospital with the elderly.
You're really good with old folks.
I love the elderly. And he was basically dry, witty. He was known for his sarcastic sense of humor. Dakota was also a very athletic guy. He was a soccer player. He was also captain of the swim team. And after his disappearance, Jeff James, this is Dakota's father, he tearfully spoke with detectives about his son's potential and the heartbreaking fact that he never got to live a single day using his desire or education for what he truly was going to school for, what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. Never got a chance to do so, and how tragic is that?
Very.
So Dakota was last seen on the night of Wednesday, January 25th, 2017, and this is when he was out enjoying a midweek happy hour with coworkers. This is where he worked. It was a Pittsburgh trucking company, and he worked in logistics here. So he was a busy guy. You know, he's taking graduate school classes and working full-time. That's not easy. So the group went to Bar Louie in Station Square, and at 7:30 p.m., Dakota and his new female coworker, they basically set off from the group. They took a train to downtown, and they went to the Diamond Market Bar and Grill in Market Square. They paid for their bill at 9:27 p.m., and then from there they headed to Liberty Avenue in downtown Pittsburgh. They went to the 941 Saloon, and then they headed down a few doors down to Images Bar, and both of these establishments were gay bars. So according to Pam and Jeff, their son was openly gay after he had come out at age 18. Oh. And they had absolutely no issues with his sexuality. They only did worry for his safety. And their son was a very non-confrontational person, and they basically worried that someone could potentially harm him simply because of his sexual orientation.
Oh yeah, living in Florida, we had the horrible shooting in Orlando. We at the bar, and that's a horrible situation.
It's hard to wrap your head around the fact that, this case obviously took place in 2017, but in 2025, we were discussing the fact that there's probably a lot of professional athletes that potentially haven't come out of the closet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the percentages of gay people, but what, 10% at least? Maybe
I don't know.
Maybe more, maybe less. But it's like, just using percentages and looking at athletes, that means like, at least a few on every single team, 5 or 6 probably, and it's like you don't hear about them very often, unfortunately, because it's still a stigma.
It's just unbelievable to me that is the case in 2025. It's mind-boggling. So again, they had no issue. They just worried for his safety. So Dakota and his coworker were seen on surveillance at about 11:30 p.m. They were walking toward the Wood Street T station, which is the train station, and his coworker ultimately got an Uber ride home, so this left Dakota out by himself. So the very last image of Dakota was taken from a surveillance camera at 11:49 p.m. in the cultural district, easy for me to say. So the image depicted him looking down at his phone, and he was walking through Katz Plaza, and then he entered an alley. And this would have been the most direct route that he would have taken to his apartment. So it's assumed that he took the Roberto Clemente Bridge, that he was heading in that direction. This would have taken him across the river to his north side apartment. Unfortunately, the camera at this location was not working at the time. It would have shed light to confirm, yes, this is the direction that he took once he exited the alley. So from here, it's all theory. So the main surveillance camera that was on the bridge was ironically filled with water. It was inoperable at the time. So again, it can't even confirm, yes, 100% sure, this is what happened to Dakota. He reached the bridge. So a lot of theory in this case. So the following day, this is Thursday, Dakota did not show up for his shift at work, and when he failed to come in the next day, which was Friday, this is the point when they're like, okay, something's going on. So his employer called his apartment manager, who then went on to contact Pam at 9:15 a.m. And when she was notified that her son was missing, she immediately knew in her heart and in her gut that something was terribly wrong. This was not like her son. He wouldn't have just disappeared and not contacted somebody. So she and Jeff were living in Frederick, Maryland. This was 3 hours from Pittsburgh. So they immediately jumped into their car in order to drive over to Pittsburgh to meet investigators. So after he vanished, police theorized that before crossing the Roberto Clemente Bridge, Dakota headed down the stairs in order to urinate along the Allegheny River.
Yep.
So this eventually turns into the Ohio River. So it's possible, and this is what was theorized, that he fell into the icy waters. And, I mentioned that he was the captain of his swim team. He was a very strong swimmer, but what was pointed out was that the water is so cold at this point in the year that in a matter of minutes, your body would just simply go into shock.
And I've read that when you go into really, really cold water, your first body's inclination is to like inhale right away. So sometimes you gasp as soon as you hit that cold water. And it's like, and then you inhale water and you're like, oh, and then you freak out and, God knows what happens. But I'm a pretty strong swimmer too. And I like to think that I'd be able to get out of that situation, but you never know.
Well, keep in mind too, he was out and about having drinks. So alcohol is involved as well. But the whole idea is when somebody is falling accidentally into a river, it's highly, it's a surprise. And like you said, the instinct is to inhale. I don't care if you're Michael Phelps. If you inhale a lung full of water, you're going to be in trouble, paired with the fact that there's alcohol involved and that the river is so damn cold at this time of the year.
Is it like fast flowing at all? Do you know?
At certain parts, yes.
Okay.
So Pam, however, did not believe what investigators were theorizing, that her son simply fell into the river. At this point in time, we don't know where Dakota is, so there's a lot of theory involved. So she believed that something must have happened that caused him to fall in if he ended up in the river. So the bridge was across a concrete barrier in a major roadway, which would have taken a lot of effort for Dakota to reach the area had he gone down there to urinate. And Pam said he just came out of a dark, deserted alley. If he had a pee, he would have likely done that there.
Good point.
So according to Pam, not only was Dakota a strong swimmer, but he wasn't really an experienced drinker. So his family didn't really believe that he would have been so inebriated to the point that he accidentally fell into the river.
Yeah, it was like, ooh,
Right.
fall in.
And I don't know what the area looks like down there, but it sounded like there was enough room. It's not like you go down the stairs and like the river's just there. You know, it would have taken effort to fall into. So it is her firm belief that when he came out of the alley and out of the range of surveillance video, that he potentially came across someone that did something terrible to him. So Pam and Jeff temporarily relocated to the area so that they could be closer to the whole investigation, the search, and they wanted to be a face to the media so that Dakota's face could be known to the residents of the area and that they could, help them find him. So they attended vigils, they posted missing person posters, and with this, Dakota's boyish face became a very well-known image to local residents. And they did come forward to assist with searches. They provided the family with food, lodging, as well as moral support. Can you imagine the terror of not knowing where your child is?
No, and having that terrible feeling that it's something really,
Something
really
bad.
And that's the only place your brain can go, especially a guy who's really popular and would have plenty of friends that he would have reached out to and been like, oh, no, I'm here. And then, all these different things, missing work twice. It's like he's something bad happened.
Right, exactly. And your mind is going to go down so many dark paths as to what could have potentially happened.
Yeah.
So, however, searches by land, water, and air found no sign of Dakota. So during the initial days of the search, Pam and Jeff spoke with Dakota's friends just to try to get an idea of, what was going on prior to his disappearance. They learned that something concerning had recently happened to him. 6 weeks before he vanished, Dakota had been out. This was on December 15th, 2016. And he contacted his friend Shelly after he was out with coworkers. And she was suspecting, based on the events of what happened that night, that Dakota was likely drugged. He was very drunk, he was confused and upset. So when she finally managed to track him down, she wondered if he was at risk for potentially being abducted that night. So she theorized that maybe somebody slipped something into his drink with the intention of abducting him. And reason being, when she did find him, he was basically wandering down a street toward an SUV that was facing the wrong way on the street. It just looked out of place to her. She immediately stepped in and made sure that Dakota made it home safely that night.
Well, that was nice of her.
So retired New York City police detective, this is Kevin Gannon. He believes the same thing happened to Dakota on the night that he vanished because Pam and Jeff eventually got a hold of Kevin Gannon for his assistance in their son's case. So Gannon is the leader of a group of investigators who are looking into this whole idea of the Smiley Face Killers. So they have found a pattern in a series of mysterious deaths involving college-age men, and it is their belief that there is a group of serial killers who are responsible, who they have dubbed the Smiley Face Killers.
Why Smiley Face? I'm sure you're going to tell us.
I'm going to tell you right now. So at each location a victim is recovered, there is a creepy smiley face graffiti found somewhere in the vicinity of where the victim was located. Now, some people will say, well, a smiley face is one of the more popular things to graffiti.
Sure.
So is it just a coincidence? Possibly.
Mm-hmm. And then like in the vicinity, like it's never like maybe on them, or sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It's like, oh, well, this one was like 2 miles away. It's like, it's kind of loose.
Right. So Detective Gannon and his team of investigators came forward in 2008 with their theory regarding their belief that there's a group of serial killers across the United States who are murdering, like I said, college-age men. So the story of the Smiley Face Killers began in February of 1997 when 21-year-old Fordham University student Patrick McNeil was out with friends in New York City's Upper East Side. So he became exceptionally intoxicated that night. He threw up in the bathroom. They were out at a place called the Dapper Dog. So then he went outside to wait for a ride home with a friend, but that friend didn't show up. So Patrick headed to the subway station in order to get a subway back towards his dorm. And he was seen walking, followed by a van that had been double parked out on the street. So on April 7th, this is nearly 2 months later, Patrick's body was recovered from the East River. This is over 12 miles from where he was last seen. And the medical examiner ultimately classified his drowning as undetermined, or I should say his manner of death was undetermined, right? Yes, as a cause of drowning. I always get those mixed up. So there were questions raised in terms of a lot of the details of this case, in terms of Patrick's state of decomposition. So it wasn't in line with the amount of time that he had been in the water, and his family and private investigators believe that he was abducted and murdered. So his blood alcohol concentration you would expect to be super high based on witnessed accounts of when he was last seen. I mean, stumbling, vomiting, etc.
Yeah.
So it was at 0.16. Now, keep in mind, though, that the human body naturally produces alcohol after death. So what it's assumed is that when he died, it was probably about 0.12. Now,
Still pretty drunk.
This would be equivalent to about 6 drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, though, don't keep in mind because you don't know, but he was 6 feet tall and 195 pounds. So people were saying, okay, somebody that's 6 feet tall and 195 pounds, say you're out for 4 hours. 6 drinks should not make you stumbling, falling, vomiting, and disoriented.
6 drinks is the average of an average size human. So for a 6 foot tall person, it would be more. He probably had 7 or 8 to get to that level, because it's different. So,
okay, because they were just saying equivalent to about 6 drinks.
Yeah, if like for an average person. So he probably had some more, but like 0.08 in the United States is the legal limit for driving, which isn't like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to get into all that, but it's like it's significantly inebriated, I would say.
But still, they didn't think it was as inebriated as he was acting to be.
Stumbling, probably not. Yeah.
So, was he slipped something?
I mean, in college, we used to like breathalyze ourselves all the time. So I have a pretty good idea of like what a 0.08 and all that kind of stuff looks like.
So when his body was recovered, Patrick was found on his back, and apparently this is extremely unusual for drowning cases, as most victims are found floating face down. They did say based on your body structure, if you're obese, you could potentially flip over. Obviously, if you're in rapids or something like that, the rapids could flip you.
Why'd you look at me when you said if you're obese?
Because I'm talking to you.
Okay.
You're just across from me, Mike.
Okay,
don't be silly. So this is another very suspicious thing, though, that the coroner also noted markings on his neck that were suggestive of some sort of binding.
Okay, well, I mean, that's kind of a red flag.
Right, but they did not determine that this was a homicide.
Well,
it was
that's
an undetermined drowning.
That's what I'm really curious about with Dakota, like any markings or anything. And I know you're going to tell us, but that'd be very fishy.
The other weird thing was that there was also insect activity on his body that suggested that he had been on dry land for a period of time before he was placed into the water.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
So Gannon came together with fellow detective Anthony Duarte and criminal investigator Lee Gilbertson, as they made a promise to Patrick's parents that they would continue the investigation. And since then, the trio have worked together compiling evidence to support the fact that they believe that Patrick McNeil was the very first victim of the Smiley Face Killers. So since this time in 1997, about 45 men across 11 states and 25 cities have mysteriously vanished after a night out. It's always after a night out, only to be later recovered in a body of water. One piece that I read said it could be as high in 2023 as like over 300 potential victims.
I mean, that's a big deal. That's like something that should probably be stopped.
Right. And Gannon doesn't seem like the type of guy, because I watched him in several shows that he was on. He doesn't seem like he's out there and reaching for things.
Yeah, like
he seemed level-headed.
Theory.
Yes, he didn't seem like a conspiracy theorist. So Gannon's team found similarities in the victims. Nearly every victim was a young man attending college. They generally all maintained good grades. They had a lot of professional aspirations. Many were also top athletes. They were very popular within their communities, and each went missing during a night out, drinking with friends, only to be later found dead in a body of water. Some of the more recent victims have been openly gay, and it's believed that each of these men were drugged, killed on land, and then eventually moved to a body of water. So Gannon, Duarte, and Gilbertson believe that the men's death might be connected, despite the fact that all of their deaths were ruled accidental or undetermined. And however, the FBI and other experts have dismissed their beliefs, and they think it's nothing more than just a far-fetched conspiracy theory. So obviously, with the FBI and law enforcement thinking that they're just like these wackos that are coming up with this crazy idea, it's going to be hard for them to prove their point because they're being met with resistance.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to believe there could be serial killers just out in the city.
That's freaking scary.
It's very scary, yes. So the nonprofit Center for Homicide Research has pointed out that the fact that because the victims were consuming alcohol at the time they vanished, that it would explain why the men were confused, stumbling, and accidentally fell into the water.
Yeah, and these are all college men, and drinking's involved, and like these bad things happen sometimes, in that situation.
And obviously in college, there's a lot of binge drinking happening, thus, getting intoxicated. So because young men in particular are statistically shown to be more likely to partake in risky behavior, generally speaking, than fueled by alcohol, they are overrepresented in drowning deaths.
Yeah.
There's just more accidents involved.
We're pretty stupid, I would say, sometimes.
It's not thinking of the outcome or the consequences of your actions.
I did a lot of dumb stuff back in the day.
Even our son, sometimes I'm like, are you for real? I'll just say that to him. I'm like, seriously?
Right.
So a chilling idea about the Smiley Face Killers. Obviously, the idea of any kind of serial killer is frightening, but unlike serial murderers in general, the theory is not just a single killer. We're talking about a large, organized group of people. And according to Gannon, it's possible that there could be more than 1,000 people involved in this.
I mean, if it sounds pretty far-fetched, usually it probably is pretty far-fetched. But with the internet now and, 4chan and all those, anything's possible, I guess.
Yeah. We were joking at dinner. I'm like, how does one find the dark web? Is it www.darkweb.net?
Yep.
Like, what is the dark web?
That's the hard part, the .net. Nobody thinks of that, and you get right into it.
They're going to like .com.org.
Yeah.
It's the .net.
It's hidden, and it's dark.
It's dark over there.
Right.
It really is. So, it's just a frightening thing to think that there could potentially be 1,000 people involved in this.
It's horrible. That's that's worse than, I don't know. It's really bad.
And they believe that it could be broken up into cells that span 12 to 15 different cities, which would explain why some victims went missing on the same day in different cities. So according to Gannon, the group has only gotten more active in recent years, and because law enforcement is failing to make a connection, many of the deaths are being simply ruled accidental or undetermined, thus allowing the group's confidence to just grow. So in an undetermined drowning, it's known that the victim drowned, but it's unknown why, and it lacks clear evidence to support foul play. So they can't say, oh, it's like if you're with a group of guys and the guy jumps off the boat and doesn't come back. That's an accidental drowning. You know it because people were there to witness it. In this case, you don't know why they went into the water, but they're there and they drowned. So unlike in a homicide with an accidental or an undetermined death, there is no further investigation. So once the medical examiner comes back with that, the homicide team, they're never activated because it's not a homicide.
Weird.
Yeah. So at 8:40 a.m. now, we're moving to March 6, 2017. This is 40 days after Dakota vanished. A woman was out walking her dog along the Ohio River when she noticed a body floating in the water near Interstate 79 Bridge over Neville Island. This is 10 miles downriver from where it's suspected that Dakota fell into the river at the Roberto Clemente Bridge. So when he was found, he was completely clothed and he had his ID on him. So Pam and Jeff indicated that when they went down to the medical examiner's office after their son's body was recovered from the river, they were not allowed to see his remains. So they were told that they needed to identify his body, but they were only shown a photo of a tattoo that was on his ankle. And looking back, Pam wishes that she would have been more persistent about seeing her son's body. She realizes that she was just so incredibly numb with grief that she just wasn't thinking and acting as she normally would, and she would have been more demanding. And she now regrets the fact that she wasn't able to see her son one last time. And obviously you don't want to think about seeing your child in that way, but still it was her child.
Yeah, and if it's something that she ultimately wanted to do, then she should have been able to.
Yeah.
Not that they stopped her. They were trying to protect her, obviously.
She was told she could not see her son's remains.
Oh, my gosh.
And she later learned that as a parent, she had every legal right to do so.
Yeah, they're allowed to lie, I
Right.
guess, unfortunately.
So Carl Williams, this is the county medical examiner who did Dakota's autopsy, determined that Dakota's death was accidental as a result of drowning. And because of this, homicide detectives were never involved in his case. It was immediately closed as soon as the autopsy was complete.
Weird.
So according to Williams, there was no evidence to suggest a homicide or suicide, as Dakota's body showed no evidence of recent physical violence or trauma. So obviously he's saying, of course, somebody could have pushed him in the river. You're not going to have fingerprints because somebody pushed you into the river.
Right. There's no obvious evidence.
That would lack any kind of forensic evidence to prove it.
Yeah.
So Dakota's parents were stunned, and they could not understand why he would have gone down to the riverbank in the first place, how he could have fallen into the river. If he had been so drunk that he managed to fall into the river, how did he safely navigate down the stairs that would have taken him? Wouldn't he have stumbled down the stairs if that was the case?
Maybe he fell all the way down and into the river. I don't know.
But he didn't have any injury to
Right.
his body.
Yeah.
So Pam and Jeff were upset that investigators refused to explore the possibility of foul play in their son's case, as Pam 100% believes that someone did something to their son on the night that he vanished. So, of course, police can't say for sure that Dakota entered the river right there. They admit that, yeah, he could have easily climbed into a car on Fort Duquesne Boulevard, but there was no evidence to support that theory. There was no cameras past that alley that he exited. They're only left to guess. So Detective Gannon and his team began looking into Dakota's case in May of 2018, as they believe that he fit right smack dab in the profile of a victim of the Smiley Face Killers. So the group was fully aware that they were facing an uphill battle, just like they do in every case, since like other Smiley Face victims, Dakota's death was not investigated, again, because it was considered an accidental death. So it's their goal when they're doing this and looking into these cases to truly to get justice for the families of the victims, as well as the victims themselves, who can no longer speak for themselves, because they believe fully in their hearts that these young men did not accidentally fall into the bodies of water where their bodies were recovered from, and that there was likely something much more sinister going on. I know you love that word, Mike. So Dakota's case was covered in Season 1, Episode 1 of Smiley Face Killers, The Hunt for Justice. So this is the show I watch on Dakota's case, and this is where I was able to see the team, and they seem very level-headed, rational people.
Like you kind of get a feeling right away when
Right.
you're watching it. You're like, okay, they're a little wacky. Who knows? But they seem professional and
They
everything.
seemed very professional and level-headed. So I will tell you that during the episode, they showed a photo of Dakota's autopsy report, just the front sheet. And this is where it broke down the toxicology level. I was able to see it on there. It's not reported anywhere else. So I paused the video a bunch of times to make sure I had it all right. So basically, how it broke down was his blood alcohol level was 0.214%, which is more than 2.5 times higher than the legal limit, while his urine was even higher. It was 0.322%.
That is
This
high.
is 4 times higher than the legal limit. Keep in mind, it does continue to rise after death because our bodies themselves break
longer
down and
processing.
produce. Our bodies themselves produce
right.
alcohol. So there was also, and this was the part that I was stunned by, that I didn't read it in every piece of my sources, is that there was 22 micrograms per milliliter of hydroxybutyric acid. I hope I'm saying that right. Otherwise known as GHB in his urine. So GHB is produced naturally in the human body in very small amounts with a typical cutoff of natural GHB levels of 10 micrograms per milliliter.
And this was 50?
22.
22.
So therefore, a level of 22 micrograms per milliliter would indicate GHB administration.
Meaning administration being they were
Somehow taken.
Somehow took it. Okay.
Whether, voluntary or it was slipped into the drink.
Right.
Is what it shows. So when taken as a recreational drug, because it is used as a recreational drug, I'm clueless when it comes to drugs, or unknowingly, especially in combination with alcohol, it can be extremely dangerous. GHB is a central nervous system depressant, and we know that alcohol is also a depressant. It has various street names. Some of them are pretty funny. Some of the more common names you might hear on the street is G, liquid ecstasy, liquid X, again, amongst others. Some funny like homebody booty, or I don't even know. So
we in college back in the day when we were there, 2000 about, it was called Liquid G.
Liquid G.
There was like a couple of frats that were like known to use them. By whether they did or did, I don't know. But yeah, pretty dangerous stuff.
So in the 1990s, GHB became known to the general public as a date rape drug.
Yep.
So it is colorless and tasteless. So ladies, gentlemen, whoever, when you are out in the bar, please do not accept drinks from people you don't know. Keep a close eye on your drink because someone could slip it in.
Have you seen those TikToks, like how easy it is? It's like impossibly easy. You think you're taking you're talking to somebody at the bar or whatever, somebody could just come and like pour it right in right there. It's like right next to you and you wouldn't even know. Like even if so like you like to think that it's just like, oh, don't accept a drink from somebody else, but it's also watch your own drink as it's sitting there.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, you have to think about a bar or a club. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of noise and lights and music and dancing and engaging with people and alcohol, which thus suppresses our natural,
instincts and abilities to recognize.
And
this.
it's not like I'm holding my mug right now. It's not like you're going to sit in the bar with your hand over your drink all
You'd be
night.
a huge dork. Like, don't put any GHB in my drink.
Is there any liquid G in here? You just have to be as precautious as you can possibly be is all I'm saying, because I think after I finished my dietetic internship, I had 5 other interns with me, and I believe that we were all drugged that night because the last thing I remember was coming out of the bathroom. 3 of us girls went in and we washed our hands and we were coming out and this guy had a tray of drinks. So here I am saying, don't accept drinks from strangers, because I did. Mm-hmm. I took a shot of some crap and that's the last thing any of us remember.
And you weren't a drinker at the time.
No.
Like, you'd be like, have a couple cocktails and come home.
We were all very professional, straight-laced girls. We were a crap show that night. Let's just say this.
Well, I had to clean up your mess in the back of our car.
I tried to call you on my lipstick that night. I literally pulled my lipstick out of my purse and tried to call you on it.
And you knew that because you guys were piecing together your evening, and one of your friends was like, Allison, you're trying to use your lipstick. And you're like, what? Hello, Mike?
It was just a mess, and it's not funny.
She had stuff in her hair, all frozen because it was cold and gross.
Yeah, I tried to get into some taxi van, and could have been very, very dangerous.
You passed out in a dude's taxi, and he's like, can you please get her out of my taxi?
Not good. So I shouldn't be laughing. It's actually not good. So again, you just be careful because it can make people very vulnerable to sexual assault. I mean, talk about the lowest of the low. These losers who are putting this in someone's drink so that they can just have their way because they're so disgustingly trollish. They can't face a girl who's conscious or guy.
Yep.
I'm not saying that anyone's at risk here. So because a lot of people have no memory of that night, it just wipes away your memory. You're vulnerable. So in 2002, it was approved by the FDA for use of treatment of narcolepsy. So medically, it is used. So despite this fact, it is illegal except under strict medical uses. It is still commonly used as a recreational drug. Bodybuilders are even known to use it. Obviously not to the point that they're stumbling around the gym. They're using it to aid in fat reduction and muscle building, but you really shouldn't. So GHB has been found in about 30 of the drowning victims linked to the Smiley Face Killers. However, Gannon and Duarte believe that this number is far higher. If they could speculate, they would say it's probably present in 99.9% of cases, but because GHB is not always tested,
it should be.
It's not coming up in toxicology.
Especially in colleges, like you would think.
Yeah, and so some of the cases, their family had to have it independently ask for it. So they think it's almost prevalent across most of the cases. So Gannon and his team initially had only access to Dakota's typed up report, his autopsy report. They did not have any photos from his recovery from the river, nor his autopsy. So according to the autopsy report, his body showed signs of moderate decomposition, and they speculated from the get-go, he'd been missing for 40 days. Wouldn't you, by that point, you would expect to see extensive decomposition after this length of time. However, you have to keep in mind that Dakota went missing in Pennsylvania in January. So with this, both the air and water temperatures were extremely cold. Basically, that would have slowed decomposition, preserving the body.
Yep.
So they also went on to share the autopsy report with forensic pathologist. This is Dr. Cyril Wecht, who agreed that because of the frigid conditions, you can't say, moderate decomposition, something's off here. He said that could be expected. So Gannon's team were stumped by the lack of injuries. So this is really what it was that threw them off, was the lack of injuries to Dakota's body, despite the length of time that he had been in the river and the distance his body traveled. So Dakota's body was found 10 miles downriver from where it's suspected that he had fallen in, and he would have had to have passed over or through the Emsworth Dam on the back channel of the river.
Wow.
Yet there was not even a scratch mark or any injuries found to any part of his body. So according to Gannon, of the hundreds of cases that he has seen, this just didn't make any sense. He didn't think this would be possible.
No, you'd think there'd be like rocks and especially instead a freaking dam.
Right.
So
And this dam was very active. Like the water is flowing.
It's almost crazy that they didn't think of that at all. Like the police when they recovered his body.
So from what the description was given of Dakota's body at the time it was recovered was described to be in pristine condition. So with the path that Dakota's body traveled going through the metal and concrete dam, he would expect to find extensive postmortem injuries, and that was not the case. So with this, they theorized that maybe Dakota's body could have been placed in the river beyond the dam. So, again, no signs whatsoever is what was typed into the autopsy report. It said no evidence of recent physical violence or trauma. So Dakota's body had been recovered 2 miles beyond the Emsworth Back Channel Dam by Robinson Township Volunteer Swift Water Rescue Group. Easy for me to say. Again, this was 40 days after he vanished. So Gannon's team went on to speak with the recovery team. So the rescuers estimate that it would have taken his body about 30 minutes to reach the area where he was recovered after going over or through the dam. So the current was moving at a rapid rate. And because the river hadn't been dredged in many decades, if at all, they had no records to say that the riverbed had been dredged, this would mean that there was a lot of sediment and debris at the bottom of the river, which would have increased the chances of Dakota's body being damaged as it traveled downriver. So Gannon's team, like I said, they spoke with the rescue team who recovered Dakota's body. They indicated that he was floating face up and his body was in a condition that was indicative of not traveling very far, especially over this dam. So these rescuers had recovered at least a dozen bodies during their career, and all the previous victims' bodies that they had recovered had much more extensive damage than what they visualized on Dakota's body. So the first bridge upstream from where Dakota's body was found was the I-79 bridge, a location Gannon's team felt was much more likely to where his body entered that river, rather than the Clemente Bridge. So at the very least, they believed that his body was placed in the water somewhere downriver from the dam. They took a boat, they traveled it, they saw some boat ramps down past the dam. They were like, somebody could have easily backed their car into that location right there. It wasn't monitored.
Yeah.
Was that a possibility? Yes, of course. Sure. So they also found a blue upside down smiley face graffiti image on the first man-made structure upstream, which was very characteristic of other cases involving the theorized Smiley Face Killers. So Gannon's team took a closer look at the dam. This is the Emsworth Dam, and it's operated by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they spoke with the retired U.S. Army Corps of Engineer. This is Werner Lawlin. So they looked very closely at this dam and its concrete closures, and they open in an up and down motion, kind of like a garage door, but it goes just straight up and down. So this allows the water to pass under the gate and then over the concrete dam. And like I said, over the dam, it's very rough. It's like rapidy. So if a body were to pass under an open gate, it could potentially sustain a really bad crushing injury if the current pushed the body into one of the concrete posts. Mm-hmm. So, it basically says in this case that it would almost be like, lightning striking twice, that Dakota would be able to just flow underneath unharmed.
So it's possible.
It's possible, yes.
But not probable.
So detectives asked this man about the gate openings, and he indicated that of the 6 gate openings at the back channel, there are always some open, but it just depends on the day, how far they're open, how many are open. So odds are, obviously, then they had to look at the records to see, well, what were they opened? So on the day that Dakota's body was recovered, the total opening of all 14 gates was 25.5 feet. So with this, they theorized that a few were probably open maybe a foot, while the others were open 2.5 feet. That's not a lot.
No.
So you have to think of the bottom of the river and then the gates being open a foot to 2.5 feet. So what are the odds that he just flowed through under unscathed and didn't crush into one of the concrete posts or the gate or the bottom of the river itself? Mm-hmm. So on some days, such as March 1st, this is 5 days before his body was recovered, some of the gates were lifted much higher. One gate was raised as high as 7.5 feet. The others were at about 6.5 feet. Had he passed through on March 1st, the odds would have been better that he didn't get harmed.
Right.
But they didn't think that it would have taken his body 5 days to travel the half mile where he was ultimately located, that somebody would have seen him there had he passed through on March 1st.
Yeah, it feels like he was probably put back into the water somewhere.
Yes.
And that's kind of what it's leaning towards.
That is what the team fully believes. So the lack of injuries on his body indicated that his body had not been caught up on any kind of object whatsoever in the river. Take the dam itself out. Not any kind of branches, nothing, no rocks, nothing.
That's what I'm thinking, rocks. Like at least there'd be like several cuts and like you said, branches, rocks, anything, any kind of debris from the bottom that's like floating. It's just like that you'd run into something. You'd like be going against the side because that's just what happens.
Right.
So.
I mean, I think about we've gone on this place called Rainbow River in tubes. Like our tubes were constantly being caught up on branches and things that would have cut skin.
Yeah, as the river's meandering and such, it's natural.
And that just wasn't the case.
Because we're not water, when water just kind of flows and whatever, like any objects are going to go up exactly.
So according to Gannon, Dakota's body also had a blackish green discoloration, which would be expected at the point of maybe 24 hours in the water. After 40 days, the expectation would be that his skin would have been black in color. And Pam reflects that when she saw the photo of her son's ankle, his skin was perfectly white. So the lack of swelling to Dakota's body also made it clear to the detectives that he had not been in the water for 40 days. You would expect a body to be very bloated.
Absorb a lot of water.
Yes, at that point in time in the water. So they didn't think he had been in the water through the entirety of the 40 days he had been missing. So according to Gannon, Pittsburgh is a newer area for the suspected Smiley Face Killers, and there have been 2 other victims that have died very similarly. 22-year-old Paul Kachu, who was last seen in the early morning hours of Tuesday, December 16th, 2014, and 25-year-old Jimmy Slack, who was last seen at a rock concert at Stage AE in Pittsburgh on Tuesday, December 6th, 2011. And it's kind of weird too, because it's like December for 2 victims and then January for another. So it's like the cold months.
Yeah, similar area.
Kind of interesting.
Yep.
So Jimmy Slack was a barge worker from Bridgeville, Pennsylvania, and he had gotten separated from his friend while they were at this rock concert. And then early the next morning, he called another friend. It was 3 a.m., and he didn't sound upset at all. He basically said, "I'm partying, but I don't really know where I'm at." And that was the last time anyone heard from him. And then 7 weeks later, his body was recovered in the Ohio River, not far from where that venue was, Stage AE. His autopsy concluded that he drowned. His manner of death was determined to be undetermined. So detectives spoke with journalist and podcaster, this is Michael Fiocco, who hosts the podcast 3 Rivers, 2 Mysteries, where he and Ashley Murray discussed Dakota's case as well as the case of Paul Kachu, and just how eerily similar they were, despite the fact these 2 men have never met. So Paul was 22 while Dakota was 23. Both were specifically in that area to attend the very same university. They were both athletes. They were both highly ambitious, fun-loving people. At the time they vanished, they were both only days away from visiting their family, because we know Dakota was going to go to his family's vacation home, and then Paul had plans to go home for the holidays. Neither suffered from drug addiction, any kind of medical condition, any kind of suicidal ideations. Paul Kachu was an ICU nurse at Allegheny General Hospital. He drowned after a night out with friends. It was like his roommate and some other people. They were watching Monday Night Football at Smokin' Joe's on the South Side in December of 2014. So he was out with his 2 roommates and others that night. They were only a short walk from their apartments. And just about midnight, he told his friends that he was drunk and he was heading home. So sometime later, he had gotten back home and he started texting his roommates to say that he cut his hand on some glass and that he needed their help. So they left where they were and they met him at the apartments, and they described him as combative when they were trying to help him with the bleeding from his cut. So then they were sweeping up the glass in the apartments, and apparently there was still some combative behavior. And I read in one of my sources that one of the roommates kind of like checked him with their shoulder. Mm-hmm. This knocked him down, and he struck the wall with some part of his body. They weren't sure what part of his body hit the wall. So with this, Paul became upset and he began to cry. So the 2 roommates left him at the house and they went off to McDonald's to get food, and they could see them at the drive-thru getting the food. They returned shortly after 2:30 in the morning. So they did not see Paul when they came back. They just assumed he had gone back to bed. But they realized later that day that his wallet, his cell phone, and his keys were gone, despite the fact that his Volvo was parked out front. Mm-hmm. So 2 weeks after he vanished, surveillance video from a private residence surfaced that showed a man believed to be Paul walking past a grocery store that was less than a block from their apartment. This was at 2:47 a.m. on the Tuesday morning that he vanished. And the image depicted that he was struggling to walk properly. I watched it. It was dark. He was kind of hunched over, and it did seem like he was having difficulty. So police theorized that he somehow ended up in the Monongalia, of course I looked that up, river, and I'm saying it wrong. However, his body was found 94 days after he vanished, and this was on March 20th, 2015. He was recovered in the Ohio River near Wheeling, West Virginia. So this was 85 miles downstream. There were several locks, dams, and shallows in between that he would have had to have traveled through. So his body was nude when it was recovered, and in addition to the cuts on his hand, he had 3 fractured ribs and a 1-inch wound to his scalp. Now, the medical examiner could not say if any of these injuries were sustained after death, if it happened when he was in the river. His blood alcohol level was 0.15%, and his cause of death was undetermined freshwater drowning. So the West Virginia ME ruled Paul's manner of death as undetermined because of the circumstances leading up to the immersion of the decedent into the water are unknown, is what they wrote in the report. So whereas in Dakota's case, the Allegheny County medical examiner ruled Dakota's manner of death as accidental, even though authorities can't say where, when, why, or how he entered the water.
Yeah, there's no way to say that.
So that doesn't make sense to me why his was said to be accidental rather than undetermined.
Right.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
So as with Pam and Jeff James, Paul's parents, just like them, do not believe that their son just accidentally fell into the river, and they wish that police would have investigated their son's case further.
Yeah, and like the thing that sticks out the most to me is that they were both athletic, and somebody who's athletic can generally hold themselves pretty well whether they're drunk or not. I mean, unless you're absolutely hammered, that's a totally different story. But we knew a lot of athletes in college, and they were always together. They could always do some amazing things when they were just really hammered too. So, I mean, those are the last guys to slip and fall into a river.
Right. So after Dakota's family read about the Smiley Face Killers, they noted that Dakota fit the pattern of victims. He was highly intelligent. He was young. He had been out drinking with friends, just like many of the other victims. So with this, Pam and Jeff went on to hire a private investigator. This is Larry Forletta, in order to delve further into their son's case, despite the fact that the police were saying, it's accidental. We're not investigating this as a homicide. They weren't done with that. So when Dakota's computer was forensically analyzed, there was one suspicious email recovered from January 27th, 2017. This is when Dakota had been missing for 2 days. So at 11:05 p.m., there was a receipt for a PayPal purchase from Dakota's account that could not be explained. And this made Pam question, had Dakota been held somewhere in between the time that he disappeared and when his body was recovered?
Yeah, completely possible.
There was no way of explaining how this happened. So because Gannon believes that other victims of the Smiley Face Killers had been kept alive after they were abducted and before they were killed, he feels like absolutely this is 100% a possibility.
Wow.
So Detective Gannon and his team, alongside private investigator Forletta, they walked the route that Dakota took on the night that he vanished based on surveillance video. So his last movements were no longer captured after he walked out of that alley. And I will tell you, in the image that he is last seen in when he's walking and he's looking at his phone, he looked put together. He was in perfect posture walking. Obviously, it was just a quick snap that I saw.
Yeah, but usually you can see if somebody's stumbling and it's absolutely hammered. And the other thing, couldn't they have tracked through PayPal who the payment went to and all that stuff? What it was? You could, maybe because they're not police and they can't give a warrant and search it.
Right.
But if it was police, they could probably go to PayPal and be like, we need to know where this payment was made.
In one thing that I read, and it was only one, there was mention of a pizza that was ordered, and I couldn't find it in anything else.
So
what that payment was. Yeah. Exactly. So now this team of detectives are walking the assumed path that Dakota took that night. So, they're looking up at the cameras that just weren't working, which is just so unfortunate because we would have had so much more information. So again, they're taking this now presumed path. So there were 3 potential bridges that Dakota could have taken over the river, but because the 7th Street Bridge was closed at the time, this would have limited him to 2. And it would have only made sense that he would have taken the 6th Street or Roberto Clemente Bridge, same thing, or the 9th Street Bridge, but based on where he lived, it would have only made sense for him to take the Clemente Bridge, hence the reason why investigators believe that that's what happened. But the remaining question was, how did he get into the water? So the investigators continued to walk Dakota's presumed path. They did note the cameras on each end of the bridge, but again, it was said that the one was filled with water and it was not functioning that night.
What about the other one?
Well, he never passed.
Made it.
He never made it over the bridge, which is why they believe he walked down those stairs.
Okay.
So again, there is a set of stairs just before the bridge crosses the water, and investigators have theorized that he went down those stairs rather than crossing the bridge in order to urinate. They said that cadaver dogs alerted at that location early on in the investigation. However, according to Gannon, this does not prove that Dakota was there and had indeed gone down those stairs. So Gannon's team were scheduled to meet with the Pittsburgh Police Department because they had the autopsy report. They wanted photos of Dakota's body. They wanted to see it with their own eyes. So they scheduled this meeting. They show up, and all of a sudden they're told that the meeting has been canceled. So, the team is very much accustomed to police resistance. They say that they don't ever want the public to think that there could be a group of serial killers out on the loose.
No, that's a very scary thought.
Yeah, they don't want the media to catch wind of that and have people freaking out.
Yeah, but still, I mean, if it's something real, then odds are somebody's going to say, yes, this is real, let's investigate it.
Mm-hmm. So after their meeting was canceled, they were notified eventually that records could not be released to them since Dakota's case was an active criminal investigation.
I thought
and they're
it wasn't.
like, I'm sorry, what?
Since when?
Exactly. So this was in direct contrast to what Pam and Jeff were told, that Dakota's case was officially closed because it was ruled accidental.
Yeah, now that these guys are looking into it,
Yeah.
maybe they opened it back up.
Exactly. So Allegheny County District Attorney Steven Zappala eventually agreed to meet with Pam to discuss her son's case, and it was determined that she would be able to receive all the photos and case files, which she was given during their follow-up meeting. So as Gannon's team has all of this information, they're reviewing the documentation, the photos. Well, what do they find? Suspicious marks around the back of Dakota's neck that were never, ever mentioned in the written autopsy report.
Well, how could the cops open it back up and then give all the papers and not say anything about it? Why? Crazy.
I mean, according to them, they didn't open it back up.
Okay.
So when Dr. Cyril Wecht reviewed the images, he concluded that the injuries were absolutely consistent with a ligature having been applied to Dakota's neck. So, however, according to the autopsy report, there was no internal damage to the neck structure. So in another photo, Dr. Wecht noted a distinct difference in the coloration of the fingernail beds of the 4th and 5th fingers on both Dakota's right and left hands. So what it was consistent with, according to Dr. Weck, was that if somebody was behind you or in front of you strangling you and had something wrapped around your neck, your instinct is to reach your hands up and try to pull that binding away.
Yeah, with your pointer finger and middle finger.
So his were the 4th and 5th fingers.
Yeah, interesting.
But it's whatever could get under there.
Yeah, I guess.
really.
But those aren't your strongest ones. If I'm going to try to pull something out, it's going to be my pointer and my middle.
Right.
Everybody try it right now. If something's wrapped around your neck, what's the way you're going to try to rip it off? It's that pointer and middle because those are the strongest fingers.
Well, yeah, hook your pointer finger.
Absolutely.
So these were just two concerning things
Ideas,
because they're seeing this marking, which I saw it. It was a very visible dark marking to the back of his neck. And, that may be where the tension was. But, again, then they're seeing further information to reinforce that thought with the fingernail bed damage. So it was Dr. Weck's opinion that Dakota's manner of death should be changed to undetermined or even homicide, and the case should absolutely be reopened and reinvestigated. So that was huge. Pam was stunned. So when a homicide detective from the DA's office was sent to the medical examiner's office, they concluded that there were no ligature marks. So what they said was that the markings they saw in that picture on the autopsy photo was only from dried blood, that was eventually washed off during the autopsy. They're like, oh, it washed away.
Dried blood from a person that was supposedly in the water for days, 40 days or whatever.
Does that make sense to you?
No.
No. So that
Where'd the blood come from? Like he was in the water.
They said his mouth and his nose.
And he was face up, right? So the back would have been in the water the whole time.
Right. Well, who knows with going through or under the bridge or not bridge, the dam.
Oh, like a scab or something is what they're saying.
They said it washed off and there was no trauma there. So according to, So according to the Allegheny County DA, Steven Zappala, there are two pictures. One where blood came out of Dakota's nose and mouth and then pooled around the neck. And a second set of photos where the neck is clean and there are no ligature marks. But I don't think that they had those photos.
Weird.
They only saw the ones with the marking to the back of his neck.
Okay.
So this is something that Pam refuses to believe. Like you said, if Dakota had been in the river for 40 days, how did that blood not wash away?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. So it also doesn't explain away the fact that why were the fingernail beds on that, the two hands and the fourth and fifth fingers damaged? No explanation.
Because they didn't look into it very far.
So since Dakota's body was cremated after it was recovered and after the autopsy, there's no possibility that his body can now be exhumed and have it re-examined to see, there actually was trauma on his neck. So this is something that obviously Pam, looking back, she acknowledges that she deeply regrets this, but at the time she just trusted the system and it was case closed.
Why wouldn't you?
So as Dakota's case currently stands, there is not an active investigation happening unless some sort of new evidence is found. So his death to this day remains listed as an accidental drowning at the Allegheny County Medical Examiner's Office. According to Gannon, there is still enough unanswered questions, though, that police could be prompted to reopen the case and look at things. So Pam is not certain that a serial killer is responsible for taking her son's life. So she is not saying, I believe my son is a victim of the Smiley Face Killers.
No, she's saying there's probably more to it than falling into the water.
Exactly. But she refuses to give up until she knows exactly what happened to her son. She understands that nothing she does moving forward will ever bring her beloved son back, but she does not want her son's name to go down in history as some drunk college kid who stumbled down the stairs to pee and then fell into the river, because she doesn't believe that that's what happened. So Dakota was an amazing son, a brother, and a friend who dreamed of one day attending law school, traveling, getting married, and starting a family. The things that just lay open to young people, that the world is truly your oyster. We say that to our kids all the time. You could do whatever you want.
Yep.
And sadly, Dakota never had the chance to do that. Since his death, the Dakota James Foundation has been created in order to safeguard communities by providing education, improving security, and assisting underserved areas. The James family want to make their mission to implement changes so what happened to their son doesn't happen to another family of a missing person. Had those cameras been working, we would have so much more information as to what Dakota's fate truly was.
Yep.
Some people listening to this will simply say, he fell into the river.
Sure.
What do you think?
Obviously, you got to bring it in and what you're trying to go for. Obviously, a lot of the story is pointing towards there's probably something more to the story. If you look at it from a police perspective, they're so busy. We say this all the time. They're so busy. They're trying to get to the next case, close it out, and be like, okay, like these probably aren't ligature marks. It's probably, he probably fell into the water. That's the easiest answer, right? Do I think I think it's absolutely insane to think there's potentially thousands of people working together, murdering people, and smiley face serial. That sounds effing stupid to me. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry, guys, if you this is a serious part of your life and that you're really looking at it. Now, is it possible? Sure. It's definitely possible.
Would you ever think there's a thing called sex trafficking?
Right. That's a good point.
It's mind-boggling.
Right. And there's a lot of things like, the Jeffrey Epstein or Island or whatever his name was and all that stuff. But sometimes it's just, okay, let's get down to just basics here. Look at each other. Do you think there's 1,000 people trying to murder people all over the place? If maybe a dozen, maybe, like, I don't know. It just seems very far-fetched that the Smiley Face Killers. And like, oh man, the first structure down the road 2 miles away had a smiley face on it.
But do you find it weird that at the majority of the locations where these victims are recovered, there's a smiley face?
If you show me exactly where the smiley face is for every single one of these victims, I would believe it a little bit more. I guarantee it's going to be, oh, this one was 2 miles, but it's a smiley face. And this one was like right next to him. And like, okay, I get it. And I'm not trying to poke any fun at Dakota.
No,
like, this
of
is
course
a horrible,
not. Horrible.
Every single one of these victims, horrible situation, right? But I think it's really disingenuous and dangerous and stupid to say that it's a huge serial killer mass organization, like organized crime. Like if that was a thing, the FBI would be all over them. Maybe they are, and they're pretending that they're not. But I have a lot of faith in our system that hopefully that's not happening. Because like if they are organized, it's all via the internet, and the internet is set up to be spied on, like via the NSA. That was set up years ago. This isn't conspiracy theory. The NSA watches basically everything that goes over the internet. So it's kind of like, when you work at your job and your boss, like, or whatever, or the higher ups can see like the amount of YouTube you've done. Like this can all potentially be done. They say they can only do it when they have like search warrants and things, but they're always watching messages going back and forth. Now, if it's all via the dark web, yeah, that's why, like we were talking about that jokingly. We're like, yeah, obviously it's a lot deeper than in it. You can, not track people on the dark web. There's a lot of bad things going on there. I've never been a part of it. I have no interest, but
right. And I'm somebody that can be a little naive and trusting and think like, I was watching something about the worst roommate ever. I think it's on Netflix if I'm not mistaken, but there was this case where this woman's roommate was insane and she was trying to kill her by literally ordering a drug-resistant bacteria on the dark web and putting it in her roommate's surgical wound because she had like a neck surgery done. And so the FBI tracked that somebody was ordering that this is like way worse. It's like Versa, not MRSA, but Versa. And it could be used for like mass destruction. So they followed the order to the P.O. box and basically just staked it out. Like even the fact that happens, that somebody could order this crazy drug-resistant strain of bacteria online.
Yeah, and it's
is like
possible.
Crazy to me.
And that's one person, right? And then the authorities got involved and they figured it out. Like, maybe not fast enough, but like if there were 100 people figuring out how to murder people around the U.S., it would probably be found out pretty quick.
You would think or hope.
I mean, there's mass terrorist organizations that are foiled all the time. Like the terrorists are always trying to do stuff. It's just that the FBI figures it out before they do.
Don't you find it weird, though, that they're all like college-age men in some of the cases? Because again, I just did Dakota's research, but that there's suspicious findings on these things, like the land insects on their body when they were said to have just simply fallen into the river.
Yeah, that's weird.
Insects you would not see had they been in the water that whole time. States of decomposition that do not make sense.
Yeah, there's more to those stories. Like, for instance, Dakota, I think there's more to his story,
I would agree with that 100%. Do I believe that there is this ring of serial killers out there called the Smiley Face Killers? Maybe not, no, but I do believe in Dakota's case, there's more than meets the eye here.
Yeah, and if you have more information on the Smiley Face Killers, then please drop it in the comments or whatever. But yeah, I think that's a little far-fetched. And it's hope. I hope that there's not a lot of people.
Right, because that's scary as hell to even think about.
Right.
So anyway, sad case all around. And I will tell you, I felt like I got to know Pam and Jeff, especially Pam, because she was kind of like the face to the shows I was watching.
Yeah.
My heart as a mother is truly broken because her son just seemed like such a special, awesome guy. And the fact that he's no longer with us, that he never got to fulfill the dreams that he had, it's just a tragedy.
Well, that's what you have as a parent. You just want the best for your kids. Not necessarily that, that I want them to be millionaires or billionaires, but I just want them to be happy and to produce something within society. And it sounds like, Dakota was well on his way to do so.
I mean, he was a go-getter.
Yeah.
So
I'm
just
so
sad
sorry.
all around.
Yep.
But it does seem like there's more than meets the eye.
Yep. And so thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. We're just a little Ma and Pa podcast here. I'm Pa.
And I'm Mom.
Yeah. And we're not one of those, huge networks like the, all the Morbids and all that stuff. They do a great job. Don't get me wrong.
They're awesome. I listen to them.
Absolutely. They're the ones that inspired us to start this whole thing. So, we do really appreciate your support. And the number one place to support us is via Patreon or Apple subscriptions. So if that's something you're considering, then please do so. I think it starts on Patreon as little as $3 a month. We'd really, really appreciate it. Allison puts in a ton of effort into all these things. I do a lot of effort into the YouTube. That takes the most amount of time, but it's getting there. Maybe in 2 or 3 years we'll have something over there. But I guess this is a form of begging, and I'm not too proud to say it is. So yeah, go ahead on over to Patreon and Apple subscriptions. Get yourself, and you know what? You deserve it. You deserve it. I think it's like tax time. So if you get like a little refund in your taxes, go ahead, pay for the whole year. You can just pay for the year. Then you got bonus episodes the whole year through. How about
it's like
that?
the gift that keeps on giving, like the Jelly of the Month Club.
Absolutely. So it's, how's that for a sales presentation?
I like it, Mike.
Also, I do provide cameras for like, large enterprises and things, and our cameras would not have failed at those things. So
I thought about you with this case because it's like, dang it, if only they had the cameras there. And Mike sells security cameras.
They're fantastic cameras.
So yeah.
Well, hey.
But thank you guys so much for being here with us. We will be back on Wednesday with a bonus episode if you're interested. And until next time, bye.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.